in Egypt of 3 journalists from the Al Jazeera network, reporters for Al Jazeera English, and the online campaign to have them freed.
That's right. Al Jazeera started that campaign several weeks ago, Mark, and indeed one of the bylines, or I suppose the slogans of that campaign was "Journalism is not a crime." And as many news reports were saying today, the decision of that court in Cairo essentially determined that journalism is a crime because there is essentially, as many observers are saying, there isn't a shred of evidence against them, and these were essentially terrorism charges. All of this goes back, of course, to coverage of anti-government protests 6 months ago, and the sort of presumption that Al Jazeera was pro Muslim Brotherhood. In any case, you can see an awful lot of disdain and anger for that decision being expressed by the network itself, but also by human rights organisations which have picked up on that free AJ staff campaign on social media. Journalism is not a crime, as I said there, being one of the main slogans. That's Amnesty International tweeting that. And also you could see it across French social media as well today, the same slogan translated into French. The Sunday edition of the New York Times, Mark, look at the back cover there, completely without any text at all. And indeed, at the bottom of the page, you can perhaps make out there, "This is what happens when you silence journalists." That was a full page ad bought by Al Jazeera in a bid to draw attention to that trial and to what the sentence that indeed was handed down would mean. The fact that this is essentially silencing journalists. There was indeed another journalist, Mark, who was freed just a few days ago, also for the same channel. Abdullah El Shami, there's a photo of him. He went on a 140-day hunger strike. Now, I don't know if he was completely without food for the whole period, but you can see that obviously it had a serious impact on his health, and he was freed essentially because of that. But appalling treatment, really, of those journalists. And as Amnesty International has said, a very dark day for media freedom.
Indeed. Al Jazeera is saying it defies logic and indeed justice. That's sentencing to 2 to 7 years, 1 to 10 years.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
Effectively for interviewing the Muslim Brotherhood.
For doing their jobs.
OK, we'll keep an eye on that story, clearly. Let's move on now to the world of smartphones and tablet applications, an industry, James, that is booming, apparently. What have you found?
All right, well, there's one application this week that has been getting an awful lot of attention, Mark. Now, remember a lot of people saying of Twitter that it was a very sort of minimalist format. You can only type in 140 characters. Well, what about this one, where it's called Yo, and it's called Yo because you can only send one word, Mark, and that is Yo. Right, so that's pretty minimalist. It doesn't leave much room for sort of creativity or, broad expressions of sentiments, etc. So in any case, it's had about 500,000 purchases. It's on the top 5 list of applications bought at in the Apple Store. But over the weekend, one of the founders were in rather a bit of panic. A lot of people, by the way, saying that this was just a fad and that it was going to go away. Yo, no, as that headline says in TechCrunch. But there was a hacking operation and a virus was put into the system, essentially. And if you were one of the 500,000 people who had that app, you were getting dozens of unsolicited yos all day long, which meant a lot of people deleted the app. So it was going up, 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 up. And then this virus meant that a lot of people, despite the fact that there was $1.2 million invested in it by savvy investors, or perhaps not so savvy because they didn't see this virus coming along. In any case, a lot of people are saying that would sink the rise of this rather odd app, except one of the founders by the name of Moshe Hogeg located one of the 3 hackers who was a student at Georgia Tech University and hired him. So there you go. It's a pretty extraordinary times in Silicon Valley, and essentially that app now seems to be saved by the fact that this hack came quite early, which means it might well survive.
And you can only send the word yo.
That's it. I think the idea is it's used sort of for verification. So I could say to you, look, I'll beep you or I'll send you a message when I'm out of the meeting, and you yo the person. But it's a trend, it's a fad, and you could just as easily send them a missed call. You don't actually have to download or purchase an app to do that. But there you go. That's the way things are going.
Yo, James.
There you go. We didn't even have to download it you can also just say it.
James Yo Creedon with Yo Media Watch. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Mark.
Time for us to take a very short break after that. More news, of course. This is Live from Paris.